Hi, everybody. It's Lyle and Beck. No, sorry, it's not Lyle. It's Lyle Finley Wild. Hi. This is Lyle Finley Wild channel. All right. Well, you're probably wondering why I got the vest on. There's a true story to that vest, and I'll tell you one day. But I got one real true story. Oh, and this is the only 3X biker shirt that I own. Right? So, I bought that when I bought the biker pigs at the flea market. And Becky bought a bunch of things herself. It was a bunch of earnings we earned when we were doing the shuttle service anyways. And I gave her her portion and she had hers. Well, these are all our hats that we have. You know, these are Becky hats over here anyways. My hat's right over here. Anyways, so, well, what I want to share and tell you a true story with. Well, you hear me talk up on the other channel, Lyle and Becky Day to Day, about how my mom abused me. And she knows this too, right? And it's coming out in the wash here. Well, when I was age 6, 7, and 8, and 9, my mom thought I was a brat and all that. And back then, you're allowed to, corporal punishment. You're allowed to hit your kids and shit like that. But she went a little too far, right? You know, my mom, Val, I don't even consider her my mother, even though she's my blood mother. She brought me into this world. Now, it doesn't matter, right? You don't do that to kids, right? And no wonder why I was always in that special classes, because of the psychological and physical abuse that she put me through. My mother, she was born a Jehovah Witness. She'll die a Jehovah Witness. I hate Jehovah Witnesses, and I mark my words, it's true. I hate them with a passion. I even hate because of their beliefs and the way they are, and that. And my mother was she confronted it to me just this year that she was, and she's brought up that way. Well, it all adds up, okay. I reflect on it, and you know, I'd come home after friggin', I was scared or terrified to come home. I always wanted to stay up in Thompson, Manitoba. I always wanted to, I was a loner, a kid who didn't have many friends. I had my native friends that were up over there in the reserve. I knew the chief and all that, and they welcomed me in. That I'd be able to go on there and set up snares along the line, right? And on their borderline for rabbits. And I made a deal with an elderly lady that if I caught any, right, just bring them right to her, and she'll pay me what was it, $2 at the time. That was in the 70s, eh? She'd pay me $2. I said, okay, sure, yeah, here you go. And it was a good deal, right? I learned how to do snaring and that, and snare some rabbits and that, and it was great. And it was just going towards the Brentwood River, eh? So, and yeah, so anyways, there's a school there. That's a story, true story in itself, anyways, so I do that all the time and that, and my way of getting away from all the bullshit my mom was putting me through, right? And if you didn't do this way or that way, she'd just get all mad at me, and she'd get the electrical cord out. You know how you plug in your electrical frying pans, those cords, and she'd be going through every week a package of wooden spoons and smashing me on the ass and making me stand in the corner from the age of 6 years old to 9 years old. And boy, oh boy, them tears I shed in them quarters were freaking pain. It got to the point, well, here comes another whipping, because I'd upset her, because she's mentally, and she's working up in the hospital, and she was mentally just not all there, eh? To this day, I even say it too. So, and I don't know how she ended up getting a position in the hospital as a nurse and that. To this day, I still wonder how. Anyways, so yeah, and my way of escaping all that, right? And I know my little sister is going to be watching this, and my little brother is going to be watching this. And my way of escaping was every week we'd do Scouts Canada, go to Scouts, and that was my way of escaping. Well, my mom couldn't afford to buy me a shirt from Scouts Canada. She couldn't afford to do anything for me. In all honesty. So she made her own shirt, the color material, they didn't have it and that, and it was a dark neon green color. And I made it all the way up to the heads in the Scouts and that, and leading troops and stuff like that. It was fun, eh? And well, when I went to Winnipeg and to Scouts there, they said, when you quit Scouts, would you like to give up your shirt? I says, yeah, sure, why not? They said it'll be going for a good cause, and this is up with the head people there. I said, okay, sure. So I took all my patches off of it and that, and I forget what I did with all the patches. I can't remember, because I was always traveling around with my dad and that, and I can't remember what I did with the patches, but I had it all. Anyways, so I gave it to them, right? And years later, I find out that only the head people of Scouts Canada are permitted to wear that color, dark neon green color, in there as the head of the troops. Oh, I was thinking, geez, that's all right, eh? My shirt made it somewhere, but I didn't. I made it all the way doing it, right? But that's a true story, So when I see I think it was last year or something in church, I seen an African American guy whacking his kid for no reason, spanking him because the kid was giving him the eyes and that, right? And being mean to him, right? And I stepped in and I said, you have no right to raise a hand to a child. He's a child. You shouldn't be doing that. In church, of all places, I told him. He says, well, then he started quoting scripture sayings, thinking it was all right to do it because it's in the Bible. No, it's not. You don't discipline and smash and beat it into a kid. They're not going to learn. They're just going to retaliate and become worse. So, yeah. But that's a true story, okay, of the why I hate Jehovah's Witnesses so much. I'm non-denominational. Even though I go to denominational church, they know I'm non-denominational. I always have been and always will be. Right? I don't really, because when the denominations happen, that's when the separatism of the body of Christ happened, of Jesus. Right? And it's true. Okay? I'm no preacher, I'm no teacher, I'm no minister, and I just tell it the way what I've gone through. And this is Lyle Finley Wild True Story Testimonial Channel. I'm permitted and allowed to talk like this on this channel. Okay. Um, so I'm just saying, when I just reflect on something like that, eh? I mean, like, I didn't have an easy upbringing, right? I always have been a loner, and always will be. I'm not lonely no more. I asked one day when I was going through a transition in my life at just before the bypass was being helped, when I was helping on the bypass. Anyways, it's a story, true testimonial story in itself there. But I said to myself in my head, I says, where do all the lonely hearts go? One day, because I was getting tired of just going to the Salvation Army Church, and I was going through this spiritual transition, and nobody would sit for me for about a year and a half. Nobody would sit next to me in the pew or in the same pew, like in the same aisle, whatever you want to call it. Nobody would, eh? Because of rumors, gossip, and bullshit, eh? So anyway, so I said, and I said to myself, where did all alone, to myself, and then a week later, there's this girl, right? I don't know her from Adam. She don't know me, and she says, "Is there anybody sitting here?" I said, "No, you're welcome to sit here. You're welcome to sit here at any time you want." So she plunked her butt down and sat right next to me, and she was just happy to be in church and that, and I'm like, oh wow, this lady's got a lot of spirit within her. I could sense it, eh? And like I just kept to myself. I didn't say anything. She'd look at me, and she just a sweet lady that was, and then over in where they at the end of every service, every newbie, they give a plate of cookies in a wicker plate, right? And then it's got saran wrap over it, and they give it to everybody that are new and at the Salvation Army. And so I'm not supposed to do it, but I did it anyways. I go over there, grab a plate of cookies, I go, and I used to get rides to go there all the time from this couple that's well, the family works, hey? That's our last name. They'd give me a ride, pick me up all the time, bring me there. But for the longest time I was walking there. They said, how you get here? I says, oh, I walk all the way from Molstar to 3rd Street. And then I'd walk just past 3rd Street, because I'd go up by the college there, and I walked down that way and then up that way. So yeah, so they said, oh no, after me. But anyway, so Becky, right? She's just chop. I couldn't get a word in edgewise. I can't remember what she was talking to me about, and she can't remember neither. And all I was thinking to myself, I says, God, Jesus, what do I say to this lady? I don't know what to say. She's so sweet and so innocent. They said, gave me the words to say. Keep your faith. That's all I said to her when I first met her. My first words to her, right, was keep your faith. And I handed her a plate of cookies, and I guess it was something that she needed to hear in confirmation to something that an answer to prayer or something. But that's what I was led and said to say. And so here I am. I hand her a plate of cookies. I'm like, I know I'm not supposed to be handing out these cookies on a plate, but I did it anyway. So here I give her a plate of cookies, and she's like, "Oh wow, very nice." And blah 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 blah. And next week she was like, "Oh, can I sit next to you?" I said, "Yeah, sure." We were just friends for about about 4.5, 5 years, and that. And one day, well, we crossed the line. We figured, okay, well, this is for real. I got to know her. She tried really hard to snag me and all that. And many people, girls have in the past. I'm very But yeah, so I'm just like, oh, okay, this is cool, right? And I'm like, right? And after they sold the property there, I had my position there, and it sort of where I was working and that and living, and anyways, Becky's seen what I was working and what I was doing. All the cords of wood that I split and all the freaking trails that I helped make in there, and clearing out lots for people and all that. She says, "You helped do that?" And I says, "Yeah, I do." I said, "Wow." She says, she's really and she used to, well, before it used to be the Bingo Palace, and she used to volunteer at the Nanaimo Literacy. There's a newspaper article with her there at the of her stacking over at Nanaimo Literacy, stacking, putting books on the shelf when she was volunteering there. Mind you, back then they had, like, where it was a paid position, they pay you so much, you put in so many hours and you get so much pay, right? They don't have that program anymore. The government cut that out. Anyway, so yeah, so I'm like,